Hello, fellas. How are you doing?
Good. Hey, Shalonda.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, I've really been excited about this podcast episode since I was able to get in touch with you all. But before we get started, let me just say my introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming again for a good night of politics for the culture. And I'm your host, Shalonda Spencer. And today we're going to talk about Black men leading in politics, relating from the past and the present time of where we are right now. And I'm very excited to have this conversation because I didn't want to have this conversation with anyone else other than two of my favorite political guru men that I've had the chance to get to know, worked alongside with, and just be in the know of politics, and especially for, in the South. It's mostly the South. I know most of them have worked in. I don't know if their resume extended beyond that, but I'm sure they have great knowledge of what they would like to share with you all. So again, welcome to Politics for the Culture. And I have Perrin Bostic with me along with Mr. Jarius Adams. How are you all doing today?
Why Perrin get to be introduced first? My last name with an A. No, I'm just playing.
You know what?
So
I've known her longer.
Right, yeah. He is.
Shoot, we have to start
Right,
with
right.
Again,
It's you in the house.
Jackson D, I love. Yes.
Oh,
That's
Lord.
right.
We starting this wrong already.
You've definitely done a whole lot on Ole Miss. That's where you went to. No, I'm just playing.
University of Mississippi, flagship university. But anyway, glad to be here.
Thank you all so much. How have y'all been tonight? Are y'all excited about the conversation?
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it all week.
Like you was dreading, and I'm just playing. I just like to, sometimes open up with not your typical introduction and just get people to know who y'all outside of being in politics, y'all do have a good personality, which is what I love about both of you. And I've had a chance to explore. So let's go ahead and dive into my first good question that I have for you. And that is, any one of you can start. It doesn't matter. And how did you get involved in politics, and what do you enjoy the most about the work that you do?
You want to take that one first, my brother?
I can. So, in 2015, I was a senior in high school, and I did some things in high school, and some people saw me doing some things, and there was an initiative in Mississippi, Initiative 42. It was an initiative to fully fund public education in the state of Mississippi. And they wanted me to come on as a student spokesperson for the campaign, and also debate the opposition, their attorneys that the Republican legislature put up against Initiative 42 to get it to fail. And because of my speech and debate background, they wanted me to do that and travel the state and do that. So I ended up doing it. And had no interest in politics. I mean, literally, I was doing it because I thought, I would be able, it was fun, and that I could get, make a little money doing it. And I did it for a couple months. I was 17 at the time. And I think what I saw traveling to the different, school systems across the state of Mississippi and the school districts, I saw the disparities between schools that were in the Delta, schools that were in my own neighborhood, right? And then schools that were in Oxford, Mississippi, or Madison, where, the governor and lieutenant governor, had their homes, and Flowood, where they were from. So the connection was, the folks whose schools were underfunded were people who looked like me. Just so happened, right? And then the folks who had Mac laptops, and they didn't even have books, right? Like we didn't have books, but it was because we couldn't afford books. They didn't have books because their books were on their Mac laptops, right? So that's a big difference. And they had technology at their fingertips. So ever since then, it sparked a drive in me, and I realized how important public policy and politics was or is in Mississippi, but also in the nation. And I've been stuck like glue ever since, child.
Okay, so before we go to Mr. Boston, let me ask you this: you've done a lot outside of when you said you was in what college when you did it, high school. When you finished your
Oh, me? Oh, high school. Yeah, yeah. I was going from high school to college. I hadn't quite gotten to college yet. It was a summer.
So if people Google you, because Mr. Jairus Adams can be Googled, and you've done a whole lot of things on Ole Miss campus that really shape politics and social justice. So talk a little bit more about what you did while you were at Ole Miss and give people insight, the aftermath of Initiative 42.
Yeah, so like I said, it sparked something in me. I changed my major. I originally was going in as a business major, and then I changed it to public policy and political science, double majoring. And my focus wasn't even on school and academics, even though I did well, let's be clear. But everyone was like, looking for these awards on campus and was trying to excel academically, like be at the top of top. This. I was doing what I had to do in the classroom, but I was going to, I was on the executive committee in the community, right, of Democratic Party. I was going to the Boys and Girls Club and teaching speech and debate classes. I was assistant speech and debate coach at Oxford High School. I was on the Hillary campaign, and my sophomore year, I went to New York, Pennsylvania, and South Carolina, right? Communicate with my professors, telling them like, listen, y'all can provide me this part of it, but I need this like real life experience, and I love this or whatever. So, and continued to spark things within me. And then later on, I kind of took up some projects at the university, and one of them in 2019 led a march to remove the Confederate statue from the center of our campus, which got, national attention, and got the athletes involved and everything. And I can say today that the statue is moved.
Yes, come on,
Wow.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a lot of, it was a lot of behind the scenes stuff, long phone calls with the general counsel and chief of police, because we were getting death threats and needing security going to class and all kind of stuff. But by the grace of God, when it's his will, it's going to happen.
Amen.
Amen.
Hey, Mr. Boston, your turn.
No, I owe my start in politics actually to my mother. My mom is a United States history teacher, 11th grade at world famous Little Rock Central High, known for the desegregation in 1957. Her teaching me about history early on made me so interested in how government worked and what it could do for our people if we invested in the system, and not just invest, but actually kind of took ownership of it in a way, to the point where I actually started volunteering on campaigns in elementary. My mom would let me miss school on election day, and I'd stand on the side of the sidewalks holding up the signs. The most basic thing. You think about it then. Well, now, like how basic that was, but to me, that was like everything to be involved in that stage, and it just kind of progressed from there. From working on multiple campaigns to taking up some causes in college. I can remember at Jackson State when Mississippi's only abortion clinic was actually getting ready to be shut down by the Mississippi legislator. I volunteered and I protested with the Feminist Majority Foundation to make sure that women had access to reproductive services there. I got heavily involved with the NAACP, and so it just kind of progressed from that early moment of learning about history and government from my mom, who's a history teacher. So that's where my love and role in politics actually came about. So
those are great, interesting, awesome stories, and I like how you kind of started off with like telling a story about your mom, but one of the biggest issues was women, and I often hear you all the time. You're posting on social media. I've heard you in other interviews talking about the importance of women, women rights, women issues. So I want to thank you for even that, because you always have elevated that conversation when it came to like making sure you support women, especially Black women that's in the movement and who are doing the work you're doing. But you know, we all know that it's Black History Month, and I wanted to take this conversation to talk about, you know, the movement from past Black men who've been involved in politics, and bringing it to today and connecting those dots for people to see and to know, like, this work that we're doing. For me as a woman, you know, it started way before me, and for you as men, it started way before you all. And so I just wanted to know, like, what do you believe Black men have contributed to the movement from during the civil rights era, and which have paved the way for you all? And how has it paved the way?
Yeah, I think I remember watching the movie One Night in Miami that recently came out and talked about you know, several folks, Sam Cooke, and who's from Mississippi, by the way.
Shout out.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Stacey Abrams later, but you know she's from Mississippi too. But anyway, so a lot of those men who stories that a lot of folks don't know about, and what they did in their individual capacities, with whether it was music or sports, to push the movement and push the culture. Because a lot of times we only think of like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, which notable individuals, and not taking anything away from them, but so many folks who had to do their part in their communities to, you know, make it all happen and get us to where we are today. So I think that the fight for men and women, but looks a little different now. But it's still as strong. Sometimes it's not as overt, and you know, it's the foundation of so many institutions, and because we're more educated now, and we're, you know, we have more resources and technology and social media, we have to you know, we have to think a little different than our ancestors or those who came before us, to push the movement. So I think it's changed a little bit, but the fight, like many folks say, is the same.
Yeah, I echo some of that. I think the fight is different, but I think that if we're able to really study the history and really learn what our ancestors did to get us to this place, we will be able to take where we are now and go even further with it. I think if they were here, I think they'd be proud of us about young people still picking up that mantle and still trying to move the agenda forward. I think they would say that we have a long ways to go, but I think that they would be not satisfied, but I think we are living some of their wildest dreams, and the things that we are able to do, I can only imagine my grandparents or my great grandparents being able to do some of the things that I'm able to do. So in one way, I think they would be not satisfied. I think they'd be relieved and happy to see where we are. But I think just like we know that there's so much further, so much more that we have to do to make sure that we are seen as equal, that we have just as much economic power as anyone else, and that we are really living out to the fullest potential that we can as a community. And we know that when we do well as a community, so does everyone else. So.
Yeah, when I was thinking about that question and asking you all that, I automatically thought, when Jared, you mentioned a few men, and I think about Ray Charles, who literally, he was like a lot of artists paved the way to Black men and Black women, but definitely Black men spoke with their music. And I think it was another person I was thinking about as you were talking, outside of Ray Charles and Sam Cooke. I can't remember the name right now, but I just think about them and how, you know, Ray Charles wouldn't go perform at certain places that was segregated. and like that was volume. That spoke volumes. And I always tell people all the time, you know, everybody has a part to play. Everybody's not going to be on the front line and doing some of the work that you all are doing or being in protest and stuff like that. But every little bit counts. And when you use any ounce of platforms that you do have to speak on injustice and to elevate those conversations inside of your workspace or inside of your social spaces, like those things are just as important as someone going to protest, you know, and those are some of the things I've always have said.
Yeah, and I think that we see a lot of that still, right? I mean, just with sports and football, Colin Kaepernick is a great example. While, you know, he did what he did, he didn't refuse to play. He just kneeled, right? And they act as if this has never been done before, or folks hadn't done this type of, you know, protesting before, when that's not the case. People have actually done worse, said they weren't performing anymore. And even on the local level, Kylan Hill at Mississippi State, who's an all-star athlete, said that he wasn't running another football until the flag was changed. So, and it's changed now. So the power that folks in the entertainment industry have is really, really strong. And I think sometimes they're underestimated. And when comments like, you know, just shut up and dribble, or just sing, or just do, as if they're not people too, just because they, I guess, didn't major in public policy or political science, or didn't have parents who, you know, taught at universities and stuff, doesn't mean they can't speak out about the issues that directly affect them, their children, and for many years to come.
I think it really speaks to how they see us, and how there is a devaluation of Black life, that they're only there to entertain, as if they don't have something to say. I mean, and just to add on to that, we had folks like Tommy Smith back at the Olympic Games. Everybody knows that iconic photo of the three track runners after they won gold, bronze, and silver. They have their fist up. I remember seeing that photo everywhere as a kid. So this is just something that has continued to translate. I mean, you think about what Muhammad Ali did for the movement. You think about, there's so many, but they have used where they were in whatever industry, whether it was sports or music, to express themselves in a way that really uplifted people. It gave people hope, and it definitely gave a voice to some issues that people were definitely feeling. And I think that we need to see more of that, and I think we will. So
I think so too. And I feel like we're, like what you said, both of you all have said, we're still seeing it today, you know, in small ways, but they end up making bigger impacts. And all of
and can we just give LeBron James a shout out? Like, the work that he is really doing. Like, he is, you know, LeBron James for Senate, okay? He is doing some incredible work, especially around making sure folks have access to the ballot box. Like, that is huge, the work that he's doing. He led this past election cycle and making sure that NBA players, NFL owners, that they made their arenas available for voting sites. And we saw that here in Georgia, how helpful that was here in Fulton County to have it's now the State Farm Arena, I believe it was Phipps Arena, but we had 300 voting machines there. That made Fulton County, which is the largest county in the state of Georgia and predominantly Black, it made it so much easier for people to just access that site and vote. And if you're in 10 minutes and out, you know, so I want to definitely give him credit for that. So
I want to normalize Black, you know, athletes and individuals in entertainment having kind of political advisors, folks that they can lean on, whether it's like Angela Rye or Simone Sanders or Bakari Sellers and those type of people that they can reach out and run stuff by, but also people on the grassroots level, talking to them, hey, I want to do this in this community. I know, and maybe their political advisor can connect them with some. I just want, because some of them I feel like, and you know, they're not my friends. I mean, but I feel like some of them feel as if it's not their place, or they don't want to misstep, because you know, like Twitter will go in. So
But sometimes rightfully so. I mean, like think about Ice Cube.
Yeah,
Rightfully
that
so.
could have been prevented. Like Ice Cube, I'm like, who you talking to?
But let me tell y'all something. I straddled the fence with Ice Cube, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I'm not saying that what he did was wrong or what he did was right. I think that he was trying to give both parties like the benefit of the doubt to see where can we, like, how do we move forward. And I gave an interview on this, like, how do we move forward as Black people? What can people give us? And not necessarily say we look for handouts, but I mean, even me noticing, like, within the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of legislation, and when we got our new president, I'm seeing bills being passed with, within other ethnic groups and other cultures. And I'm still waiting for that. Okay, what's going to be passed for Black people so that we can understand, so we can be on the side of like equality and stuff like that. And so I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but what I'm saying is that I feel like that was a learning moment for him, also as a way of opening up our eyes to say, hey, it's okay to talk to both sides, even if that side, they're not going to agree. Because in most of us everyday work, when we do bipartisan work, we have to talk to both sides, even when we don't want to, even when we feel like, this person's not going to listen to me. But I will say this, at least I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt. So like, that's the only thing I say about Ice Cube. Like, I at least try to give him the benefit of the doubt of saying like, hey, I at least try, because some people don't even try. You have some people who don't even want to be involved politically. At least he took the chance out to write something, create something to say, hey, I'm going to propose this to both parties to see. And I don't think it was just necessarily for presidents. It was for both parties, Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Come on.
My opinion on that is a lot different.
Yeah, so I'm like, so I feel like there's a place for that, right? Yeah. I truly believe in bipartisan conversations. I think it can be productive, right? Yeah. Now, the last administration, it might not have been as productive, but I think when I say a political advisor, they could have, talked to him and said, hey, I know you have good intentions, but because we know the history of Black folks and they ain't trying to hear that, you have to go about this a certain type of way. I understand your intentions, but the implications and you just got to tread lightly. You can't just go up in there and do it the way you want to do it. So that's my thing. I think he still could have done what he did, but in a different type of way. Because it matters who you reach out to first. It matters who you meet with first. That sets a precedent, right? Somebody here that he met with Trump, and he can tell us all day that he got a meeting with Biden next week. We ain't trying to hear that. We know you met with Trump first. So it's just a lot. I think someone who is in the game should be able to help them.
Okay. I don't even know if the intention was good, and that's where I struggle with it.
I try to give people the benefit of that.
I want to, but then when you start thinking about the business connections to Steve Bannon and the 3-on-3 league, you start kind of thinking about, this is suspect. We've had an election going on now for, I don't know, almost a year now. We just went through a complete primary, and now here we are 20 days before the most, I don't know, consequential election of our lifetime. And now you're telling us, wait, pause, this is what we need to be doing. I was a little suspect on it, especially when we've had, the former president had 4 years to enact some sort of platinum plan for African Americans. It didn't happen. So now all of a sudden he's going to do this in his next term. It's just like, where have you been all this time? Right, where have you been? And then I also watched an interview with him, and there were a few with Ice Cube, a few policy analysts, and Roland Martin. And if you broke down the plan that Ice Cube put forth, you could see, number one, it didn't include anything about Black women. So that's my first problem. It's like, wait, where are Black women in this plan? Not only that, it was not anywhere near as substantial as any of the policy proposals that Joe Biden had put forth. And then you had some of the things in his plan that had already been introduced as legislation, like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act that was put together by Kamala Harris and Cory Booker. He mentioned baby bonds, another policy proposal that was put forth by Cory Booker. So it's like there are people that have similar ideas that have actually been doing this work a lot longer, know exactly what to do. If you would just work with these people, they can tell you how you can be instrumental in moving this agenda forward.
His political advisor told him that.
Yeah, and you know what? I do agree. Political advisors, and I do also say that I feel like a lot of these like companies who are giving a lot of like donor money to like grassroots organizing. I'm gonna say this. I can't say that they give it to the grassroots organizer, but I will say this. I sometimes feel like grassroots organizers are often removed from conversations that they need to be a part of. And I will always say
absolutely.
Like they are often overlooked. And so when Jerry said policy, political advisors, that is definitely true. And I feel like, people in this that's currently young people that's in the movement, that's on the ground working, we don't bring them enough to the table sometimes. And it's like, how do you know what's really going on in the community if you don't invite those who are in the community? And I've had a problem with that, since I started realizing it, because I'm like, okay, you all are giving this money, but who are you really giving it to? Like, what organizations are you really pouring into that are out here doing the work? And people probably already know who my favorite organizations are, especially in Mississippi and in the South.
Mississippi votes. Hello.
Jess, you're on mute.
Oh yes, Mississippi votes.
And I'm like, I need for y'all to really be coming in with the flow, because these young people, they are not just making movement in the South and Mississippi, but like they're making national moves. Like I often say this all the time. When Mississippi changes, the world changes. And that's kind of how it always is. And so like I need for these people to really come with
Mary had a little land.
So I really need these people to understand who really are moving and pushing this stuff forward. And it goes into my next question to both of you, because both of you have been on, oh my gosh, in so many historical moments in this past year or two. Being in Mississippi, Jerry, is you, and Perrin, you also being in Georgia. Like, I really want you all to talk about the movements y'all have been a part of that has reshaped history in the South.
And still, I even want to add on to that about not having grassroots activists at the table. I think what we're also not doing is elevating them, right? So oftentimes when I'm in the room with other senior officials on campaigns, or I'm sitting at the table with consultants, they're typically people that don't look like us. So you have people that are giving strategies on how to communicate messaging, on policy proposals, and they're completely missing the mark on how to engage our communities. And so we have to do a better job as definitely elevating younger folks, people of color, Black folks, to these positions where we're able to actually have power on these campaigns to say, no, that's the wrong messaging. That's not how you talk to us. That's not what we're looking for. Because sometimes it comes off as pandering and not actually having a meaningful dialogue in terms of our community. And we engage too late. We wait till 2 weeks before the election day and want to show up and ask for the vote. And you say, where have you been? What are we doing? And so we have to make sure that we're at those tables, at those senior tables, making sure that candidates are speaking to our needs and that they are definitely speaking in a way that we can hear them and that we understand exactly what it is that they're saying. So just to add to that.
Someone from my audience said, people that don't look like us are making decisions for us with funding that's supposed to benefit us. Come on, Dr.
That's
Cole.
true. That's very true.
Yeah, that's really true. So, I mean, as far as Mississippi with some of the things, I mean, you may or may not have heard, we changed our state flag, And so Mississippians were really excited about it. A lot of folks in other states are really excited about it. Moments like these give us hope, the hope that we need, the hope that was sometimes lost when Trump won or whenever Cindy Hyde-Smith beat Mike Espy. But when we know that if she had a chance to be on the front row of a lynching, she'll be there, right? Like, she's voted the worst senator by all 99 other senators, right? Most least effective. So a lot of times we get discouraged, but the flag change and what happened in Georgia really encouraged a lot of folks, especially people who've been on the ground. I will say, changing that flag, I was probably 0.00001% of the change that happened. With our group, it was 7 of us, and we all came together and decided that we wanted to march in Jackson. Some say it was the largest march since 70s, 60s, or since it forever. But we had a lot of fun doing it. It was much bigger than we expected, but there were so many other people that played a part also. So many different groups collectively, this coalition that came together, right? Like, and I'm not going to speak for Georgia, but I hate when people say they're not going to do something, but they proceed to do it.
I was waiting.
A lot of the attention is like on Stacey Abrams, and everybody know I got my T-shirt, my mug, everything. Love Stacey Abrams, but I think she'll be the first one to tell you that it's her and this person and this person and this group and this group, and no one person can do it alone, and we can't tokenize people in that way because there are some people who have been putting in work who don't get paid for, folks who get threatening messages in our inboxes, folks who, it's just so many folks. Just because you don't see them doing the interviews or on TV, folks are putting in work all around us. And just to reiterate everything, we have to uplift those voices. But I'll defer to my brother to talk about Georgia.
That's right. Georgia is definitely on my mind. And, we feel real good here in Georgia right now, but we know that we have so much more work to do to make sure that Georgians are healthier, safer, and more just, that it's better for all of us all around. And this is truly just the beginning here. I want to add on to what Jerry has said, that there are countless groups that are doing the work in addition to the amazing Stacey Abrams. You had the People's Uprising doing work. You got the People's Coalition with Helen Butler. You got Pro Georgia. There are endless, and they're all led by dynamic Black women. And Georgia Stand Up, that's a huge one. And so it has really been a collective effort this go around to make sure that the people really were engaged in the election this year. And I think we really did a great job of really breaking down how government can be effective and how it can actually work for people, particularly at a time right now when you have 1 in 5 families, particularly Black families, describing themselves as hungry, and 2 in 5 that are, an emergency away from having to be homeless. And so people are, facing real life issues right now, and it's so important for those of us that are in this work to make sure that people understand how their government works for them and that there are services available. I can't tell you how many people that are still unaware that there are there's rental service, resources there for people to help pay for their rent if they're coming up short, that there are opportunities for people to get access to groceries. And so that's some of the work that is really happening here. But just to go back to the electoral piece, we saw this during the general election, and then again in the runoffs. What we can do when we have a message that is one that engages people and touches on the issues that they care about the most, and what we do when we engage Black folk early. And we saw that what happens, and I think that this is really indicative of the new South that could take place across Louisiana, that could take Mississippi, and some places in Arkansas as well. And so I will continue to do the work and making sure that not only do we elect people, but now it's time to actually hold these folks accountable for the promises that they made. And we're going to be doing that work too. This is a 360 work that it doesn't end. It continues, and we have to make sure that now that our people get what's owed to them based on their votes.
That's awesome. Miss Aretha Bennett says we need a leaderful movement by Miss
That's right.
And I think that is so important. And it's something that, you know, I learned from her, and we're intentional. And it's like, oftentimes now when I see organizations or when I see people in the movement, or when I'm noticing that there's a shift that's being changed, I often wonder, it's like, okay, how can we be more intentional in what we do and how we do it? And it goes back to like making sure we're having the right voices at the table, making sure the right people are giving the right advice. Because you can have advisors, but they're not giving the right advice sometimes. And then sometimes it can be the wrong time. And one thing I've even learned now being in leadership is just that just because someone brings something to the table don't mean it's a bad idea at the moment. But it is okay to say, hey, maybe we can't go in this direction right now. Let's move in somewhere and let's move it in another direction, but still pin that. And I think that sometimes people get discouraged by the movement or get discouraged by being involved because they'll have an idea and someone say, well, hey, no, not this. And they get discouraged and they're like, well, I brought an idea to the table and they shot it down. It's like, no, we're not shooting it down because it's not a great idea. It's just, you have to understand like how it needs to be moved. And that's the purpose of being in the movement. And that's how I often sometimes see it, even in the work that I do. And so I applaud you both for like being in the know and engaging more young people and it's something like you said, Jerry, it's like not saying, hey, I'm doing this, but it's me and some X, Y, and Z. And it's okay to elevate other people who are doing the work. Like, it's not going to take away your shine from what you're doing or that next person shine, but it's okay to elevate that work. And I think that both of y'all have always done that, even from me knowing you. And I appreciate that. And always elevate. I'm always say this, y'all always elevating women. And I love it because oftentimes Black women are forgotten about. And they are so used to us just being on one side and doing one thing where we are actually pushing the needle. And I appreciate you all for giving us that credit.
Yeah, that's always gonna happen. I think me and my brother, we both agree on that. We always gonna elevate Black women. We understand the importance and what you all have done in our lives and continue to do in this nation. I'll say on the piece about like recognition, right? Because some people do it for the recognition. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't do it for the recognition, but I think, just look at my actions, right? If I'm never in a newspaper or on the news or on social media ever again, that is fine with me, because the work is going to continue. One thing that me and some of my friends often talk about is, me personally, when the story is being told, all I want is the truth to be told. Now, we ain't going to lie. We ain't gonna lie. Yeah, I'm not saying I got to get out of it, but we're not going to lie about it. But long as the truth is being told, and I'll email a journalist, I'll text a journalist and be like, hey, that was a little out, that wasn't totally true, of what really happened. So, we just got to make sure that, to our best of our ability, folks who did a thing, the truth is being told about that.
Because the narrative is important. I can't stress that enough. Us controlling the narrative of what's happening is definitely important. So I appreciate you for even taking the initiative, because some people won't challenge outside people to do certain things because they feel like, oh, I don't have the power to do that. Or no, like it's okay to challenge people to speak the truth. And it's definitely okay. So thank you for doing that always.
Mm-hmm. We saw that in Ferguson with Mike Brown, how instrumental it was of young folks using social media to really share what is actually transpiring on the ground. Because you have folks that are in the newsrooms, that are journalists, that again don't look like us, don't share our same experiences, don't understand cultural, things that are just not culturally competent, and so they cover things in a way through a white lens instead of necessarily what's happening. And that's just based on their particular experience, but as we know that's a lot different than what always happens in reality. So that was something that was huge during Ferguson, folks actually using social media to tell and keep people informed about what was actually transpiring. So I hope that people will continue to do that.
Awesome. So you all are not just leading the movement, but you're also living in this moment in time. And I think so many times is um, people who are civically engaged, we forget about the pieces of like, okay, I still got to live in this. People think we so far removed because we're involved, but we're experiencing the same thing you're experiencing. So I want to ask you both, what has it been like for you, both of you, to live and lead in the movement and politics and doing the work that you're doing? From a Black experience.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think my eyes work like everybody else's for the most. Well, I need glasses, but for stuff that's far away. But pretty much, you know, we go out and grind. Whether it's running a municipal campaign, or helping candidates, or working on initiatives, or doing criminal justice reform and these big issues. And sometimes I come home and you know at home, I'm just serious. I'm just sitting on the couch watching TV, and I'm like, wow, this is really going on. Like this is really 2021 at this point. And I try to take myself out of the activist or whatever other title, and just be a concerned citizen, especially those who may not be involved or don't know what they need to do to change whatever they want to change around them. And it's a lot, right? Like it can be, depressing and frustrating to people. Like I didn't come from a politically active family at all, right? Like my parents and my grandparents are Jehovah's Witnesses, right? They don't believe in politics. They don't vote. Like, I'm missionary Baptist now, so I go up to the poll. But my mother hadn't voted in so many years prior to me getting involved with politics. Since then, I mean, she would just send me stuff on. She was like, "Jay, what are y'all doing on this? What are y'all doing on this?" She don't say a group. She don't say an organization. Y'all, me and everybody else. What is everybody else doing on this? And so I think a lot of people rely on those who are brave enough to be on the front lines and who dedicate so much time willingly to organize and stuff in our communities. So it's a lot, but it's necessary work.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think it is definitely tough. It can be lonely as well. And definitely emotionally draining. You're trying to push, have all this effort to move the movement forward. And at the same time, you're not always being valued by the people that you work with. And that is very tough. And sometimes you just have to come home and regroup. But it's rewarding, especially when you look up and you see a Senator Warnock, or you see the mayor getting ready closing the Atlanta City Detention Center, or policy proposals that people have been working for and pushing for. And when you have those little victories, and you kind of have that aha, like, this is why I do it. Or you get when a constituent calls and says, "Thank you so much, I needed that. That was a lot of help." That is why you do it. But it is definitely tough and it's draining. And you have to lean on other people in the movement on those times when it is tough. But it's rewarding, but it is definitely emotionally draining at times.
I tell you, y'all had 2 senators get elected. If we just would have had one, baby, I still would have been on vacation right now. You wouldn't be able to tell me COVID or not. You wouldn't be able to tell me.
It is not even done. So we're right in the swing of municipal elections. We're getting ready to elect a city council and a mayor here in Atlanta, and then there you go. Then it's time for governor, and then Senator Warnock is up for re-election. So it is a non-stop election cycle here in Georgia. So
Mississippi the same way. We have elections every year. Although I'm not presently, but I always say we have elections every year. And I know it gets tiresome, but it's rewarding. It's like what you said, it's rewarding. Even when we don't get the results that we want to get, especially like in Mississippi, like I still have hope and I still believe that anything is possible. So I'll never say, oh, well, we're not ready. Like we can't keep that narrative. We have to sometimes change the narrative and change the trajectory of how we see things. And if we change those moments, everything else I feel like will start. It's like life. Like speak what you see until you see what you spoken. And that's kind of how I try to do it. And I believe that maybe, you know, we may have lost with Mike, but that's not our loss. That's it. We still gained a whole lot. We gained another man who was able to set a platform, to set a stage, to see that, hey, anything is possible. This just wasn't our time right now, but we can still come back one day, and someone else, whoever it is, to say we can win this thing. So that's kind of how I look at it, and I try to look at it from an optimistic point of view, instead of, you know, instead of what CNN or whatever try to tell us, like Mississippi Not Ready or New York Times, whatever.
He seems to get more people engaged each time he runs. And so that's encouraging in itself right there, that the more he's been able to put himself on the ballot, the more people are in tune to what he's trying to do, to the issues, and that more people are actually voting for him. I think, you know, I haven't looked at the data again, but he seemed to do better this go around than he did the last. And so to me, that just shows that the progression is there. You just have to keep doing the work. Mississippi Votes, I'm sure, is going to continue to still do the work. And eventually it will get there. It will get there. So, I mean, this didn't happen. The success in Georgia didn't happen overnight. This is something that has been working for, you know, in the works for 10, 15, 20 years. And we're just finally seeing some of that pay off. And we can do it here. Other places can do it too. So.
Great. I think that's, and I believe in all of that. So I have to ask, what does, Jairus, you made a statement of how you sometimes when you come home, you remove yourself from like the activist role, the Jairus that the community know, and you're Jairus. You're just a regular black man, Jairus Adams, and Boston. I'm sure you do the same. I just have to ask, like, what do you, and when you see stuff like Trayvon Martin, or when you see things like Mike Brown on television, when you go home, how do you feel as a black man being in the movement and you're fighting for this type of change? Then you also have to go into your reality back at home, living in America as a black man.
Man, you're heartbroken, right? I mean, you look in, when you get up every morning and you brush your teeth, you look at yourself in the mirror, and you know that anything that happened to Trayvon Martin, to Mike Brown, to any of those brothers could easily happen to you. And, I think it's scary, and it's definitely heartbreaking. But it also fuels you to keep going and to make sure that that doesn't happen to another brother. You're always going to fall just a little bit short, that it's going to happen again. But if you can just do one thing to prevent that happening to one more additional brother, that it makes it a little bit easier to get through. But it is definitely heartbreaking, because it could totally easily be you ending up the same way as some of these other brothers.
Yeah, so I try to come home and separate. I try. I want to be clear. I try. But, I used to host the conversations, Being Black in America. I hosted maybe like 8 or 9 of them. One of them had, over 100 people on it from all over the nation. I'm really excited about it. And it was good in the beginning, right? We were having some real good conversations about things that were going on. I realized, because I was afraid I was going to run out of content to talk about. Mm-hmm. And every time there was just so much more to talk about, which is good in one sense. But on the other hand, it became so much, right? Like I did all of the research on my own of these different, from all of these like Karen situations and police brutality and stuff, and just reading the details in the articles, preparing for the talk so that I can, be informed. It was a lot. I had to stop doing it. And people are reaching out like, you need to do another one. And they were getting so much from it, but like it was pulling on me. And I attempted to prepare for another one at the beginning, a week ago or whatever. And I saw the 9-year-old situation in Hamilton, Georgia, the 2 officers who were talking to each other and talking about who they rather have sex with, Stacey Abrams or Keisha Lance Bottoms, right? And talking about, Black people back in slavery days, we were given food, water, shelter, clothing, and all we had to do was work. And now we get all of that, and we don't have to do anything. And of course, it's a lot of profanity involved. And it was video after video after video. And I was like, I can't do this. I already do this from 9 to 5 and do this type of work, and bringing it over to 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, having to go to bed. I had a conversation with a Representative Faulconer, Representative Faulconer, mm-hmm. and he's on the corrections committee. And around this time last year, he was reflecting on the trip that they took to Parchman, and the things that they saw inside of the jail. I won't get into details, but I cried going to sleep last night. Right? And I haven't seen it. I plan on going. We're gonna set up a tour. I plan on going, but it's just, there are so many things that the country is built on racism. This foundation of this country, like the needle and thread of this country, is built on racism, bigotry, white supremacy. We can't stop fighting, but the fight ain't gonna stop no time soon. So it's
and even with the electoral victories here, I mean, you just cited an incident that happened here in Georgia. I mean, and not too long ago, we had the horrific murdering of Ahmaud Arbery, where he was pretty much gunned down like an animal in the street. I mean, I actually went to Brunswick, Georgia, to see his family with some state lawmakers, but also I wanted to see that place where that happened. We have such a long ways to go. And then you have, the crazy Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene right here in Georgia, who's, got all these crazy QAnon theories that are baked in racism and white supremacy. And so while we do have some things that are happening here progressively here in Georgia, there are still so many things that are holding us back. And that's what you're constantly reminded of, that, yeah, these things happen, but we still have XYZ happening. And it is heartbreaking every time you see one of those stories. I mean, we had Rayshard Brooks, happen during the pandemic. I mean, there have been just countless Black men that have been subjected to racism and ended up, in their tragic deaths here in Georgia. That it's just tough that you know that you're making progress, but then it's, here we go again, and it just continues. It continues. Therapy is so important. You got to get it. Yeah. Got to get it.
So, and it's also the piece of the conversations you have to have with, although we're all young on this call. I have a 17-year-old brother who just turned, and he plays baseball and he plays football. I'm 5'11", he's 6'1". He big, right? The conversations I have to have with him about driving around in Hattiesburg, about what he sees, because he has access to internet. He got an iPhone, Instagram, this, that. He sees these viral videos that are happening to people that look like him. And I think, white folks don't have to have those type of conversations with their children or ever. That they're told that, you have rights. You should stand up to the police officers. Don't let him do whatever. And we just trying to get by. We don't even want. I'm like, I see some lights. I'm like, don't come over, please. Don't come over here bother me, please. I'm trying to go about my business, please. So,
I just want to get home. That's the thing. I just want to get home. Like that's, and now that I'm an aunt to two young, I'm an aunt to, a 16, 17-year-old. And now I'm getting ready, to be aunt to other children that my sister is having. And I have 2 nephews currently. And even when I think about my nieces and nephews, period, girls or boys, I often think about like the conversations that I have to have with them about, not being out too late at night, being where you're supposed to be, having your cell phone on, making sure your parents know who you are. And even seeing my 2 little young nephews, and it's like, I do this work for them. I do this work to keep moving, because I know that they're going to one day live in America, that in a country that do not really care for them. but yet and still you're gonna bear the labor and put in work because you want equality, but it's not given to you as a young black man. And it's unfortunate, you know. And so I'm Jairus, I'm like you sometimes. Sometimes I cry at night. Sometimes I weep and I mourn because my brain never shuts off from the work. And even as a black woman, I think about our black men often in more ways than I can ever imagine, because without you all, you know, if we didn't have you, there wouldn't be an us, and vice versa. If it wasn't for us, there wouldn't be a you. Like, we are interconnected with each other, because even when we see it on TV, we mourn, we cry, and we weep, regardless if it's a black woman or a black man who's gunned down or shot down or whatever the case may be. Like, we still going to have feelings and emotions because we carry the blood of our ancestors and we carry so much weight. And so, like, I mean, listen to both of you all. I just had to go ahead and get that off of me, because I'm like, you know, we do have a lot of work to do. Like, it's not over. The work has to continue, and it takes men, young and progressive black men like you, to continue this fight.
Yeah, there are sometimes I watch CNN. I can't even, and this is the saddest thing about it. Like, I can't even remember the situation because there's so many of them, right? And we can make this whole list of things that have happened just in the last 2 months. But recently, in January, I was watching CNN, and there was a situation that happened. I don't even remember if it was a shooting or not, but it was just so disturbing. And I know I would have felt better if I would have had a baseball bat and was just like tearing stuff up. Like, I wanted to bust my TV wide open and just start crying. Of course, you know, I pay for everything up in here, so that wouldn't benefit me at all. But, you know, it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot. But, you know, we put on our smile. We do what we got to do.
And shake those hands, you know. We
got to do.
You know, we're not shaking nothing right now because of COVID, but you know what I'm saying.
So it's to the point where I can't even watch certain movies anymore. Like the movies that, you know, they replay or reenact police and black folk trauma. I just can't do that thing right now.
Oh,
I can't do it.
Ava DuVernay. What is it?
I can't watch that movie. I know what you're talking about.
It was like 6 episodes. In New York, he took out a full page ad. The Exonerated Five.
Yes. Oh, yes. I can't watch it. Oh my gosh. Jairus, I think I was texting you. I think I texted you about it, or I can't remember, but I could not watch that for long. I had to break it up in pieces because I was in so much trauma, y'all. Like, I cried during the whole.
I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. It's not entertaining to me. It's
when they see us. Yeah.
It is. That's it. And it's like a reopening of a wound each time, whether it's done in an entertainment, artistic fashion. I just can't do it anymore.
You're gonna get me emotional right now thinking about it, because I just could. I mean, they were young black boys, and you know, and so, like, we have a long way to go, and I know we're not going to get there overnight. So I have to close with this question, because I feel like that this is one, you know, that I hold dear to me, because I try to always ask people this when they come on my podcast and they are live. And I say, you know, we have entered into a new administration. And I know as a black man, as black people, we've experienced a lot, but I know as black men, y'all experience is different from our experience as black women. So I have to ask you, what is your hope for America being a black man in this country?
Ooh, well, my hope is that America will value us. That what we will start to see more is legislation that truly provides the economic mobility needed in our communities. That we're even kind of be able to take some ownership of ourselves, of some of our communities, that we are able to thrive and not be afraid of just living and being happy and just going forth in the world. I think, unfortunately, so much as black men and even black women in there too, there are so many worries that we have that so many people have no clue about. And so I want a little black boy to be able to grow up and not have some of the stress and worry that I have just going about my daily business. You know, is somebody going to think I'm scary? Is somebody going to be afraid that I'm going to do X, Y, Z? I want people to value us. And I know that you can't really change people's hearts, and legislation certainly doesn't do that. But I definitely want a better future for people that look like me, men, women, and that's what I want to see. And I think we can get there. I think if we continue to work together and continue to elect people that give a damn, that I think we can get there. But it's going to be tough, and I know that nothing happens overnight. But hopefully, we will stay committed and trust the process, and the next 10 years will be better than the last, and it'll continue until eventually we get there. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely want a better future for, at this point, myself and my future children and grandchildren and family. I think for me, if I can 50, 60 years from now, sit back and point to things that not necessarily myself, but the Black community have been fighting for, whether it's Medicaid expansion in Mississippi, reparations nationally, so many different issues, right? Or investing economically in Black communities. If I can point to those things and say, okay, this is better than what it was, I would be happy. Now, if you want me to be overjoyed, we can have all those things and we can just have a whole revolution. But definitely, I just want to see some progress, man. I just want to see some progress. Well, I don't think that's too much to ask for. So.
I don't think so either. And that's how I feel like that's, as Black people, that's how we do ask. We don't ask for much. I tell people that all the time. We don't ask for a lot.
That's part of the problem. We're not asking enough. We need to start demanding. That's part of the problem.
True. That's true. So thank you both. I greatly appreciate you for joining me tonight. I really look forward to seeing some of the work that you all will be able to do in the future, even after COVID, because this pandemic is not forever. This is just only temporary. So again, thank you, and I appreciate you for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Just wanna, I got to let everybody know. All right. Thank y'all. Perrin, I'm gonna be reaching out.
Okay, do it, brother.
All right.
So again, thank you all for joining me tonight. Also, as you can see, I have new gear or new merchandise on. I have my Politics for the Culture shirt, and I now have a mug. And I wanted to shout out the person and the company and the business that did this, and it's savvycreations.com. So if you're looking for someone to do any kind of merchandise for you, t-shirts, mugs, the whole 9 yards, you can go to savvycreations.com. They are a Black business. We are in Black History Month. So Black people, if you're watching, and even if you're not Black and you're still watching, please go support Savvy Creations. And I know we mentioned a lot of organizations throughout this conversation. And because it's Black History Month, and even if it's not Black History Month, I also want to say this. If you're looking for ways to get involved, to get engaged, and you want to just donate because, it is Black History Month and there's a lot of young civic engagement organizations that are Black-led, MississippiVotes.org is one of them. Again, MississippiVotes.org. It is a nonprofit organization in the state of Mississippi that focuses on youth civic engagement and turning out the vote and fighting for rights and equality for all people in the state of Mississippi. So again, savvycreations.com if you want to support a Black business, and if you want to support a young civic engagement organization that is led by an awesome Black woman, please go to MississippiVotes.org, and it's msvotes.org. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.